I am here with Dr. Allison Gray. Allison is a concussion specialist. And man, since I am so interested in this topic, I want to know, how are you, Allison?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing well. And how was that Boulder traffic?
Boulder traffic was not too bad at this time of day.
Oh man, really? But it's so random, right? Like you never know.
That's very true. You do never know.
You never know. So, anyway, so tell us about yourself. You are a concussion specialist. You hit me up. Like, I think I said hello or you said hello to me in the academy. I have no clue how it went first. And then
absolutely.
You hit me up on the gram, right? I think. And then,
yep, exactly. My friend Jenny Schuyler, great friend, she introduced me to Easton, and so the rest is history. I've been going to training there and absolutely love it. So I wanted to reach out to you and just let you, first to thank you, but also to let you know who I am and what I do, because I thought it might be of use to you and all those fighters who come to train. So what do I do? So I'm a neurologist. I'm from Boston originally and trained in the Northeast. And I did a fellowship in sports neurology and concussion after my residency training, and had the privilege to work with a ton of boxers and MMA fighters and sit ringside actually with my mentor at some fights, which was awesome.
Do you like fights?
I do, which might sound very odd coming from a neurologist and brain injury specialist, but I do. I have a ton of respect for people who go in the cage and the ring, and it's just wild to watch it from right next to the cage. It's crazy.
It's so stupid. It's so dumb. I still can't figure out why I'm even in this thing. But anyway, so all right, so for me personally, I hate seeing bad knockouts now. Like, I'm so soft in my old age. Like, even if my fighter is the one who knocks somebody out and I don't have half the information you have, how do you deal with that?
I have to tell you, I get that same probably queasy feeling when I see, whether it's the NFL and we're watching the Gator games. My husband went to UF, so he's a big Gator. Whenever I see a nasty...
So are you Tebow fans? You love Tebow?
If I say I'm not, I'll get in trouble. I went to college in Montreal, so totally different. The only thing they care about up there is hockey and curling. They don't care about football.
This is true.
I have that same feeling when I see a nasty hit. There was a nasty concussion not that long ago. I think the Steelers quarterback. It happens all the time.
That was ugly, right? That was so ugly.
Really ugly.
Randolph or Rudolph? Mason Rudolph, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was terrible.
It's horrible because you can see pretty quickly how out of it the person is, and it's just... for me, I'm sort of thinking about all the stuff that's going on in their brain and what's it going to look like. And hopefully they have a good trainer, and hopefully their agent is not going to be pushing them to get back on the field too soon.
Right. So, I guess I go about it a different way, kind of like I know how bad the concussions are, but as far as fighters go, when I see their lives, when I see them take that bad knockout, I'm like, oh man, they're about to go through the pits of hell here. Like, just
Absolutely.
Personally and emotionally, like it sucks. And
it does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. I think, the thing is, in my experience, it sucks when you have a really, really bad concussion. To have a concussion period just is not fun. It's a very isolating experience for people because it's an invisible injury. So I was laughing because I had this silly stress fracture in my ankle and I was still going to kickboxing, and I told my ortho, I said, I'm still going to go to kickboxing. I'll stop running, but I'm not going to go kickboxing. But people were saying, what happened to you? Are you okay? And that does not happen with so many people when they have a brain injury, they have a concussion. Nobody asks that question because they can't see it. And it's human nature, I think, to, people dismiss that.
My oldest son got a really bad concussion last year, and it was so crazy. Like, he was playing football at school, so not tackle, but he's ridiculously competitive, and he sees the post, like a tree, I think, something in the field, and he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna catch this ball anyway, and whack, and he doesn't even remember coming home, like he has no clue, and then it was months. He couldn't ski. This was December, the beginning of December. He probably wasn't better until all the way till April. And
yeah, that's a bad one. Absolutely.
It was crazy. He like reverted back to like a 2-year-old. Like we'd be like doing something in the house and it wouldn't go his way. And then he'd be on the floor, like throwing a temper tantrum, like literally like a 2-year-old. And I'm like, yo, asshole, you're 9. What the fuck? And obviously I didn't say that to him, you know,
Right.
but like, you're like, and his brother is younger than him, 6, looking at him like, I thought I was the baby. Right. Like, you know, so what is that in concussions, especially like, and we took him to a concussion specialist. I didn't know about you at the time. We took him. There's another lady in town. I can't remember her name. She's over right off of South Boulder Road.
Is she a neurologist or is she a physiatrist?
I don't know. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, sometime tell me the name. We all tend to know each other in the brain injury world. It's a small community of people who really get brain injuries. So it's been very interesting. It was that way in Boston too. I trained at Mass General, one of the best hospitals in the country, probably the world. And the money that is devoted to concussion training and management is just nothing compared to what it is for things like Parkinson's and MS and all the other stuff that people are, because I mean, to be honest with you, the only reason that people even kind of pay attention to concussion now is because of the NFL crisis. You know, before that, there was no spotlight, right? But it's so interesting with your son, how you mentioned about him throwing a tantrum, that I see that so often in patients. People have, as you get older, you know, when you're 2, you throw a temper tantrum in Target because you didn't get your way. You don't have those systems in your brain yet to be able to regulate your behavior. But as we get older, we learn right and wrong, and we learn, okay, well, mom said not to do that, so I need to wait and I can, you know, get my dessert after I eat. The problem with concussion is that, and brain injury, they're in the frontal lobe, these systems we have to regulate our behavior, they don't work well. And so they're injured. And so your normal ability to say, okay, I can wait, or okay, I'm not going to flip that person off, or okay, whatever it is, you don't have that ability. And so it can look like, yeah, you're having a temper tantrum, or you just you go nuts and you get really angry with your coworker or your boss. It's so interesting. It happens all the time.
I mean, we learned that it was all about the concussion. But at first I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, hey, it's so interesting. And like they didn't let him go to school. Like they were like, when this happened, they were like, okay, yep, we'll see him next year, as in January. Right. And this was the beginning of December. So they were like, yep, have a good extended Christmas break. You'll need a doctor's note to get him back in here. And we were like, damn. And then even when he went
grade?
Back, 3rd then.
Yeah.
3rd grade. So then even when he went back, he had to have mandatory rest times, like where he went to the nurse's office, slept, things like that. So it was super interesting. Like it was weird dealing with from a young child, because I've only dealt with it from the older person experience.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting too, the types of problems that kids have. They tend to have more visual problems, definitely headaches, but there are a whole slew of symptoms too with concussion. And some people get one, some people get all of them. We see headaches, which act like migraines. We see cognitive problems, emotional problems. Somebody can have PTSD, depression that's completely new and out of the blue that they never had before. We see balance problems, vision problems, sleep problems. So, I mean, it is a whole deal. And then that's not even talking about the neck problem that people get, you know, with like a whiplash injury if you get punched or if you're in a motor vehicle wreck. It's just, that's the thing. You have to see someone, I think, who can really take care of all of the issues, because if you ignore them or the person doesn't know to tell you that, hey, their vision's blurred, then it's not going to get better necessarily.
Yeah. What are some of the things that happen? I know for me, I got a concussion. The worst concussion I ever got was after fighting. It was really strange. Like I was training jiu-jitsu with my friend, and I went and took a shot, and I hit his knee with my head. And I think I went out for a second, but like I was like, whatever. And I finished training that day, and then I kept training more. Like, and I just didn't feel very good for the next couple of days. And then I went and saw somebody, and they were like, yeah, you have a really bad concussion. I had to do all these like things, like they had me do these things where I had to like focus on these balls on a string and like practice like marching in place with my eyes closed. And
yeah, we call that vestibular therapy.
Vestibular
Absolutely.
therapy. Yeah. I couldn't remember the name.
Yeah.
So, but that stuff really helped. Why? What is it? What happens to the brain that we can't now focus and walk and do all these things?
So great question. So essentially you can get a concussion from direct head trauma, like getting, punched, like let's say in a fight. You can get definitely a concussion from an acceleration, deceleration injury, like in a motor vehicle wreck. But however the mechanism of injury, your brain gets moved inside your skull and in a way that it's not supposed to. And so when that happens, the circuits that we have, our brain is like totally built on circuitry. It's all electricity, if you will. So that's how our cells communicate. So when you have that concussion, the circuits that are trying to send information, they get disrupted. And there's a whole, we call it an inflammatory cascade. So basically there's an injury and there's inflammation that occurs. Just like if you bang your elbow or you hurt let's say you break your leg, you're going to have inflammation there too. But it happens in the brain as well. And when that inflammation occurs, all of these things that we normally do well, like if I look right at you and I turn my head side to side and I can keep my eyes focused, that does not go well when you've had a concussion. And that's what that vestibular therapy is all about.
Oh my God, that was awful for me. That was so fucking terrible. I can't I would like try to look left and move at the same time. Like that was the end. I'd almost fall over.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, right? You think about a fighter or you think about an NFL player or maybe just a kid in Pop Warner football. They're going to be right. If they're returned too early, they're going to be back in that situation where they're having to move their head and their eyes around constantly and they're sick. It's not going to go well. And that's the thing that also just makes me so sad is when I see people returned too early and then they get catastrophic injuries. And we see that happen too.
Because concussion on top of concussion is the worst thing, right?
Well, yeah. And I think, so we'll sit down in the office, like I'll sit down with someone and we will literally, I'll say, how many concussions do you think you've had? And they might say 9. And we'll literally sit down and say, okay, 2001, what happened? 2005, what happened? And we go through as much as they can remember. You have a rugby player or let's say a snowboarder. I mean, somebody who's had, 8 or 9 repetitive head injuries, that is a different deal than, for example, your son or you, somebody who's had one bad one. They definitely, they can become a problem over time for sure. I
think I had weekly concussions.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember MMA. So the way we used to train MMA back in when I was fighting, I wouldn't say back in the day, but definitely back in the day too, was we just fought. Mm-hmm. We fought twice a week and then we worked on other skills the other days of the week. But it was a fight training camp was probably harder than the fight. Because at least in the fight, you only got to do this once.
Right.
Where, we fought on Tuesday and then we fought again on Saturday.
Yeah. And it's interesting. The same they say about football. The Ivy League took away tackling, I think, in its practices because they realized that players were getting more injured even in practice than they were when they actually had games. So it's interesting that the same happened with you in fighting.
Yeah. We just got smarter as coaches. We learned so for us, we learned 2 things. 1, you can't last like this. And 2, it's not actually the best way to do it. So there are better ways to actually train the athlete. So we learned both of them. But it was a tough day and age. And I don't know, the football thing is so weird for me because I love football. Do you love football as well or do you not?
I do. And I always feel hypocritical. People ask me all the time, is your son going to play? And I say, absolutely not, because it's what the nature of what I do every day. Right. And just the studies that are coming out, but I do. And that's the thing, right? It's like in the Roman days, everybody watched gladiators fight. Now we watch MMA fights, we watch boxing, we watch football. It's less bloody sometimes. But
nobody dies right there.
Right. Yes. And if they do, it's like, oh shit, it's a big deal. Versus, right, you'd like get sliced open back in the day if you were a gladiator, I guess. Yeah, I love football. It's America's passion, right? They say baseball is our pastime and football is our passion. I think football's great. I think it's the problem with football. So I would say that the most dangerous sports of people that I have taken care of and seen are football, MMA, and boxing. I absolutely have taken.
Come on, you got to put boxing in front of MMA. Boxing is all about the head concept.
I would. Okay. Not in any given order, those 3.
All right, okay.
3 I would say, if we can agree on that. But in terms of other sports, so ice hockey, right? Super dangerous. And the thing is that I talked to a retired NHL player at a conference I went to some months ago about brain injury. And it's so interesting because the heats now for hockey, they're so quick. If you look back like 20 years ago, the heats for hockey, they'd get out there and those skaters, those players, whatever you call them, they would have a lot of time on the ice before they went back. Now you have a really quick heat and those guys charge out of the gate and they, go around the ice super quick and bang somebody up against the glass and they're back. So all these head injuries we're seeing, there's just more violence, there's more aggression, there's more, I don't know what to call it, heat. There's just less time. And so things happen. And this player was just really mad because he's watched friends of his develop things like CTE. So that's the big scary thing everybody's afraid of, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And he wants the NHL to change what they're doing and not make it so violent. But I mean, who's going to change football? I don't know.
Well, with the NFL thing, so football, I don't know how to fix football.
Yeah.
Because the whole game is set up around 10 seconds, 5 seconds.
Absolutely.
Right? 0, 100, 0, 100. Where in the NHL, like, sure, they could just let the players play longer.
Right.
Like everyone would get a little more tired and then they wouldn't be able to hit as hard because they're just fatigued.
100%. I totally agree. And that's the thing at the line, those linemen, it's like they're those subconcussive blows over and over and over again. Like you said, 0 to 100.
Did you see what happened a couple weeks ago at that Black Lab Sports in Boulder?
I don't think so. No.
Ah, man, terrible. So this guy, it's out in the public, but I know him. My wife used to be friends with him before we even knew each other. His guy, Justin Bannon, he played for CU. He and I worked at the biggest bar in Boulder at the time called the Foundry. And he and I like bartered the truce between the football players and our bouncers.
Nice.
Like it was just terrible problems. And these guys were huge, like all of them, like 253, Yeah. And after a couple of fights, like I brought him aside and I was like, look, man, this isn't going to go well for anybody because I'm not saying I'm going to beat you up. I'm not trying to say that at all, but I will rip your fucking shit off and your career will be over. One of yours. And if it's you, that's awful. And you guys are going to pound the living daylights out of us, which will be awful. So how do we not do this? Right? Like, how do we not do this? And we bartered this truce kind of, and it worked very well. But then he went on to have this great NFL career and he retired, bought this building, Black Lab Sports, Sanitas Brewery right over there, So they have that building and he's not been doing well for the last couple of years. Went in for a massage and he was, you go in the room by yourself. It's dark. You start changing your clothes and the masseuse like knocked on the door and came in and he shot her.
Oh my God.
She lived, horrible. Right? She lived. She's okay. But he thought the Russian mafia was after him.
Oh my God. That's so
and it's
sad.
all CTE. It's all all just football.
Yep.
And he had
this so devastating.
What do you do with that?
So, I mean, I will tell you, you can't prove, at least not quite yet, that somebody has CTE, right, until they're dead. They're working on biomarkers, they're working on blood tests, they're working on all sorts of stuff. But the reality is we can't really do it yet. And nobody's going to do a brain biopsy on somebody to see if they have CTE. You might do it if there's a tumor, but you're not going to do it with CTE if you think they're CTE. I've taken care of, at least a dozen people who I think have CTE, both when I was in Boston practicing and then here. Who are they? So it's a group. It's not always athletes too. I took care of a woman once who was just brutally assaulted for years by her priest. There are horrible things that happen to people that aren't even in athletics, right? But it's so.
Did you say a woman and a priest?
Oh yeah,
weird. It's normally boys and priests are really weird. And
I don't
boys.
Even know. It was really messed up, but it's just sad. Yeah, what happens? Yeah. So this with like this retired snowboarder I took care of. It's just devastating. He's in his early 40s, and he struggles so much now. And these people that I've seen, I think, what do you do with it? So part of what we're doing, we can't cure it. We don't know how to fix it or how to reverse it, but we do know how to treat people for depression, treat people for headaches, treat people for cognitive problems. And I think a lot of these people, they don't get the help that they need, and their mood issues like depression become so bad, right? That they then, or their paranoia or whatever it is, they then commit suicide. There are a lot of these players, they're committing suicide, or they're committing like double, like a suicide homicide thing. There was a football player some years back who, I can't remember his name now, but he shot his wife and then himself and killed them both. I mean, just terrible stuff. Horrible.
Like, look at Aaron Hernandez.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, just tragic.
I don't know, this topic's been coming up a lot for me on my podcast, the idea of free will, because I don't believe in it. I believe that we are we will make any and every choice based on two things: our life experience and our chemical makeup. And not that we don't make choices. Everyone gets all hung up on that, like we're not making a choice, but we could make no other choice than we do in any given moment. And if you repeated the universe, like if you copied the universe exactly and put them right next to each other, and I gave you the choice red pill or blue pill right now, like the Matrix, you're going to make the same one in every universe because it's the same. Mm. So someone like Aaron Hernandez, who did these awful things, I mean, I know we have to remove him from society, like right. That's for sure. But how much fault can we put on a guy? Like we paid for this.
Yeah.
We paid.
I know. We did. And then right. And that's the whole thing. People killing themselves or killing other people because they're brain damaged and, essentially demented from things that we paid to watch them do. It's really, and so the NFL, the NCAA, the American Academy of Neurology Sports Concussion Conference that I went to in July, just a few months ago, there are people from the NCAA there. It's very, very complicated because there's so much money in it. And
right, because they're trying to get rich.
Right.
And they're getting rich. And they don't know any of these people. It's like sending people to war.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. They just send them out and they don't have to reap the repercussions of what happens to them 100%. And I think they're trying to be at least somewhat responsible now. They have the targeting rule. They have, other things that they've implemented, like the Ivy League, the NCAA has, but it's still, it's not enough. And I think here's the thing: when I return somebody to the ring, or I return somebody to the field or the arena or whatever it is, I have ended somebody's career. I've done that a couple of times. It's a very big deal. Certainly if it's like a professional boxer, it's a really big deal, and there's pressure and there's all sorts of stuff. But if you're going to do that, okay. If you're not, and you are going to return that person to the ring, they need to know, they have to have informed consent about what the risks are of going back to the ring. So when I've had to end careers, it's because there's something in somebody's head. This time that this happened, it was a boxer. He had a little vein in his head that does not look normal. And if he had gone back to the ring and been punched a certain way, lights out. So I can't in good consciousness return that person to the ring. 4
boxers have died this year.
Absolutely. It's tragic. Right. Just this year alone. Absolutely.
And as far as the NFL goes, I do kind of feel like they know the risk now. Mm-hmm. Like if you don't know the risk, then you are either the only way you don't know the risk is if you are blindly ignorant.
Yes, choice. I would agree with that. I would totally agree.
Blindly ignorant. Mm-hmm. So I guess in my sense with the NFL, I would say, you're running it, man. Like you're running the risk. You're running the risk of Junior Seau. You're running the risk of first ballot Hall of Famer, millionaire, and suicide. Like mm-hmm. Which one do you want? And I know most of them probably say, I'm going to run the first ballot Hall of Famer one because there's only been like 1 or 2 suicides that we know of. Like we don't hear about it all. Like we know there's concussions, we know there's problems, but it's not like where everyone doesn't become Seau.
Right.
In a sense that they kill themselves. There are way more bazillionaires, or not bazillionaires, but multimillionaires than there are deaths by suicide from CTE.
True. And I think that as time goes on, we will see more and more CTE. One of the problems right now is we don't know who those players are, who are those fighters who are going to be at more risk of developing CTE. So, I mean, I see this in my daily practice. I'll see somebody who I've had a couple guys with jiu-jitsu recently, young guys. You might have somebody who had an illegal kick to the head. He has a really bad concussion. And then, 6 months later, he gets another bad one. And his trajectory and the rest of his life, you can start to look at what is that going to look like. But I think with some of these guys getting repetitive head injuries, like you said, they know what the risk is now. And if they don't know, their agent knows, or their team knows, their coach knows. Somebody is paying attention to this. But it's kind of like this, well, we love the game, there's money in it. And these guys, now that I think what's going to happen, right? The NHL's, or not the NHL, the NFL, whoever it is, they're saying, well, now these guys know. So if they're going to willingly know and go and play this sport and get millions of dollars, that's on them.
I still would have done it. I know I would have.
Yeah. Right?
I know I would have, because I know how I felt at the time. If you would have told me before kids, okay, if you would have told me that I had to give up every single thing in my life to be a champ for a week, sign me the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, all right, mom and dad, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, once in a lifetime stuff. I mean, you can't blame these guys, I don't think, for wanting that fame, that thrill. I mean, the endorphins, like the adrenaline rush and the endorphins that these athletes get, that you get, is, I mean, God, I feel that way when I do kickboxing and I'm like a white shirt. I mean, I don't know anything yet and I love it. It's so much fun. So you think about an athlete and their entire identity is built around being a fighter, being a football player. Of course they're going to say yes. Of course they're going to want it.
I didn't sleep for 3 days after I won my first UFC fight. Right. I didn't need to. I was like, oh shit, let's party. Like people can't understand what that's like. Like thousands and thousands of people watching you live, millions watching you around the whole world. Like it's insane. It's insane what that does to you. Like that rush.
I can only imagine. Absolutely. And that's why I think when you tell a player, well, you can't do this anymore. I mean, that is a huge deal. I know some neurologists who, if you've had a KO or a couple, that you're done. They're not going to ever clear you to go back. And I have never, ever been, that's not what I do, because I know that, like you said, that changes you when you have that, even if you're not as famous as that, if you get that thrill of being an athlete, maybe even a collegiate athlete, a professional athlete, it is such a part of who you are as a person. If you take that away from someone, that's exactly too what leads to people's depression and anxiety. They're going to look for those endorphins somewhere else.
It happened to me. It happened to every single person I know. Like, I don't know anybody. None of my friends that are now retired didn't go through this awful period, or might still be in this awful period at the end.
Yeah.
And I talk about it, and I knew it exactly. Like, you can't put your whole identity in this and yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Well, fuck off, man. Try not to, because your whole life is about something. So for you and your end, telling them, no, this is over when they don't feel like it's over is like, I just had this talk with I wouldn't say a buddy, a fighter on Thursday. He's had some problems with the law, and that has halted his fighting career, but now he wants to come back. And I looked at him from his last fight, and we talked about it from this legal point of view and like this one point of view. But then I looked at him, I was like, dude, do you remember your last fight? Like, you took the beating of a lifetime. Like, and you're 38. You're not, like, I hate to break it to you, you're not going to get any better.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is who you are. And the young 22-year-old is.
Right.
That he is getting better. So why are we doing this?
Yeah. It's such an interesting and complex issue. And for every human being out there, they have their own set of things about them. I mean, I think about these guys, fighters, NFL players, people who are trying to get out of their circumstances there. And I think that's also what's happening. A lot of people they're saying yes to playing a professional sport because it is their access to a different socioeconomic bracket. It's their access to fame and wealth and fortune that they would never have had access to. So if you tell that person, well, hey, you might have brain injuries and you might be demented, they don't care. They're invincible right then in that moment.
Oh, we're getting into a whole different topic with that here, right? We're getting into, I don't know where you stand. I guess we're going to find out, because you have people that say, yeah, well, they got a college degree.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Go fuck your college degree. In my opinion, these guys can't read.
Right. Exactly. There was a guy, I just read something the other day. There was a guy, I think it was a Times article or something. A guy played football. I think he became a physician, and he has dementia, and he's like 42 years old. I mean, what craziness, right? So I don't know. I think that that's where I get back to this whole informed consent thing. I think that the choices you make in this life, if you make them with knowledge, you make them, knowledge is power. If you know what the potential risks are, you know what you want and who you want to be, I think you can try to make the best decision you can in that moment. But wow, it's a complex thing. It's
so complex. How do you feel? So the NFL's who brought the light to this issue, right? Like this concussion issue. I believe only because the lawsuit, like this.
Totally.
This would have stayed. Yeah, this would have stayed quiet. We'd still be in the dark ages of brain trauma, which we probably still are. Are we?
We are. I would say we're more, we're in sort of infancy, toddlerhood, if you will. Okay. I think we know a lot more now. So Anne McKee, who is the head of the Research Institute at Boston University, she's really the one who she has been at the forefront of all of the CTE research, and it's amazing the new information that they're uncovering. I will tell you though, it's unbelievable. You go to these conferences sometimes, like the conference I was just at, and there are people who will literally stand up and be like, there is no such thing as CTE. And it's like, really? I mean, so there's science and then there's what you can make up and whatever, but it's science. It's right there in front of your face. You want to tell me the sky's not blue? I mean,
look, we have I don't know how much you pay attention to the jiu-jitsu scene. There's this whole flat earth argument.
Is there really?
See, I'm so glad you don't know. I don't know anything. I'm so glad you don't know.
No, I don't.
Oh my God. Yeah. There's the, Google it when we get done here.
I will.
There's a flat earth movement.
What? It's 2019, right? Just checking.
There's a flat earth movement. I'm just telling you that we've never been to space or the moon, or definitely not the moon. We've never landed on the moon. The earth is not round. So if the flat earth, it's not completely flat, but it's flat. And then it's like got a bowl on top of it.
Oh my God. I'm so floored right now. I don't even know what to say. Although I will ask, what does that have to do with jiu-jitsu? Is it like because of how
we're weirdos? Right? No, we're weirdos, right? We're such weirdos. We're just like, we are, okay. So most people that get good at jiu-jitsu, especially like these kids, they drop out of school. They do nothing except search jiu-jitsu on the internet. So that leads to other searches. Well, they definitely search some porn. Okay. So there's that, but then they just go down these rabbit holes of things. Like they listen to Joe Rogan and Eddie Bravo, and I love Joe Rogan. I think he's amazing, but they smoke a lot of fucking weed, right? And they talk, and Eddie Bravo is a conspiracy theorist. So they listen to it and they go, oh God, like Eddie Bravo believes like his school is called 10th Planet because he thinks there's a 10th planet.
Oh my God.
And now we know there's not even 9. We know Pluto's not a fucking planet, right? So we're down to 8. And it's still called 10th planet.
That's crazy.
That's like the jiu-jitsu people.
Wow. Is that true? Kickboxers and like Muay Thai?
Nah, you guys aren't as weird. Nah, you're not as weird because you can't learn it on the internet as well. Jiu-jitsu has this whole like learn on the internet scene.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and they smoke a lot of fucking weed.
Well, you know what that does? I mean, that just like destroys your executive functioning. I've known people who literally were high from like 18 years old to 36, like legitimately like all day long. And their executive functioning is terrible. I mean, what I mean by that is...
Can you explain that? Yeah, what's executive functioning? So
it's basically our ability to like organize and judge and plan. And they can't, like their judgment is terrible. And that's just from weed. I mean, so, smoke what you want, like do whatever you want with marijuana. That's fine. But I mean, the people who are smoking 10 bowls a day, not very good, especially when your brain is developing. Like all these like 12, 14, 18-year-olds smoking 10 bowls a day. It's not good news. That's a whole nother topic.
It's a whole other topic. Yeah, I know. It's this thing. And I agree. We'll touch it for a little bit here. Like I think weed should be legal. I think all drugs should be legal personally. Like, the last
get people out of prison. Oh, totally. Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to do if heroin becomes legal tomorrow, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like at no point in my life would I have done it, because I have never have I been like, oh shit, let's try some heroin.
Right.
Never.
Yeah. No, you're an informed consumer of certain things and not of others. And that's, I mean, I agree with you. I think oh gosh, we could talk forever about all these things, but yeah, I mean, the numbers of people in jail in the United States for drugs and is just ridiculous. I mean, look at alcohol, right? It's just such a ridiculous dichotomy of all these people drunk and DUIs and this and that. And that's totally legal. And then, drugs they just legalized mushrooms. I don't know. I think it's a confusing time for drugs, personally speaking.
I read some books that changed my mind on drugs, but
yeah.
Anyway, back to the concussions, back to the with the NFL. Do you think they're doing enough? And two, like how the NFL has like these independent doctors on the sideline that you go into the concussion protocol. You're a member of the Broncos. You go into the concussion protocol, and now you are dealing with a set of doctors that are supposedly not related to the Broncos.
Right.
Do you believe that?
So number one question, I do not think they're doing enough. I think that the NCAA is doing more than the NFL. If you look at their rules around targeting, and here's the thing, target all you want. That's only part of the problem. It's those subconcussive blows. If you look at, there was a recent study that came out that looked at different types of players.
Can I cut you off for 1 sec? I don't know what I don't know what a subconcussive.
Oh yeah, totally. Thank you. Subconcussive blow means like a lineman who is going, they're about to move the ball, and that lineman is about to tackle the guy right in front of him, and they go from 0 to 100, like you said, just like that. In a second, they have a huge amount of force and inertia, and they drive right against that other player. So you have somebody on the offense, somebody on the defense, and it's not the wide receivers. The quarterbacks do have their share of injuries, but if you look at the data, the people who are getting more and more of those injuries that are not quite enough to cause a concussion, but they're enough to disrupt brain functioning, at least if you have it over and over and over again, those guys are the guys that are probably more at risk even of CTE than like somebody like, your wide receiver, your running back. So my issue is like we were talking about before, with hockey, you can change that. With football, it's the way the game is played. So if you're going to still have the setup of the game be that these people are charging against each other with huge force over and over again, that is going inevitably to, in some people, lead to things like CTE. So I don't think they're doing enough. I think they're trying to not have people launch their heads and, bend forward and launch their head at someone. That's great. But I think there's so much more they could do. And it would take somebody really looking at the game and kind of breaking it down and saying, what is safe, what is not safe, what can we change, what can we not. So that's that first answer. And then the second one, tell me the question again.
I want to stick on that one for a sec before we go. Okay, so
I know it's the independent doctors. I got it in my mind. I just had to.
Okay, you got it. Yeah. My kid's concussion doctor, by the way, was Julie Stapleton.
Oh yeah, I know exactly who that is. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, for example, I'm coming in to tackle you in the NFL, and so how do we stop this? Because this is part of it. I'm coming in to tackle you, and as right before I hit you, somebody else hits you. I'm targeting you low, like to your chest. Mm-hmm. But now the force of that other person, this is my biggest question, I guess, with how do we fix the NFL? The force of that other person tackling you moves you down. So where it was your chest is now your head, and I am boom, and there it is. Mm-hmm. What in the world can we do about that?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm a consumer of football as a spectator, but I am not knowledgeable enough about the sport of football to know. It's funny. I watched with my husband, and he, I'll be like, well, wasn't that holding? And he's like, no, that was not holding. So I know enough about football, and I always am asking guys or gals, what position do you play? Because that informs me about what the risks are to a certain extent. But, I certainly am one to know what I know and not what and know what I don't. And I don't know enough about how the game is constructed and special teams versus offense versus defense and how plays are constructed to know what could you do. If you had one guy always going against one guy, and then like in elementary school where you cover that person, I'll cover that, it's just, I don't think it works that way.
It's more on the quarterback, I think.
Yeah.
Right. But here, let's go over holding real fast just so you
I love it. Yeah.
So at any point, if you so outside of like the offensive line, okay, at any point, if I grab you and turn you, that's going to be holding.
Got it.
If you do that to a non-ball carrier.
I got it. Okay.
You can always grab a non-ball carrier. You can always grab the ball carrier and turn them. That's tackling.
Right.
Okay. Now, where holding gets really tricky is like the offensive line. What's holding and what's not holding. Offensive, defensive line. Okay. You can never tackle. So if I ever tackle you, that's holding. Okay. That doesn't mean fall down. If I push you and you fall, that's not holding. But if I'm grabbing you and I throw you to the ground, that's holding. Okay. Now, other than that, you have to look at where the person's hands are, like the offensive lineman. Right. If I put my hands, shoulder pads, and in, I can pretty much do whatever I want except tackle. I can grab on, I can steer, I can do a whole bunch of things. Once my hands go outside the shoulders and I'm spinning you, like you get around me a little bit and I grab you, holding.
Got it. Thank you. I love it.
Whenever you see a flag on a running play, just know it's holding and coming back. Okay. I used to be like, Dad, how did you know? Yeah. Like when I was 6 watching football with my dad.
It's awesome.
I thought he was a genius.
Yeah.
Like if you see a run play, especially a good run, but you see that little yellow holding. Come on,
it's got to be holding. All right, I got it. See, I'm always trying to beef up my sports knowledge because, right? I mean, truly, it matters, right? Because if I'm taking care of athletes, I mean, man, I don't know anything about snowboarding. I know half pipes, and I had a friend growing up who used to literally like jump out of helicopters and land on mountaintops. So the kind of crazy stuff that people do is just crazy. But there's a lot that you don't know, and to be somebody who takes care of athletes for 50 sports, I mean, 25 sports, whatever it is, you have to at least have some idea. But it's just, football is definitely a more complex game than, I mean, I would think than something like tennis. Now, maybe that's wrong to say too.
You live in Boulder, girl. You just got yourself in trouble.
I'm sure I did. At least I didn't say soccer. Soccer's a whole nother thing. Oh man, boy. Yeah. Soccer's a whole nother topic.
I mean, a funny story real fast before I go back to that second question. So we are watching my kids' flag football game. My kids play flag football right now. And the ref was getting just screamed at by the coaches. And he gets so mad. He starts yelling and screaming at these, stop it. He's yelling. He's like, and he's the ref, right? He's the ref. And he goes, how am I supposed to remember all these damn rules?
So maybe you need a different job, buddy.
It's like, yo, man, you're the fucking ref, right?
Oh, God.
You're the ref.
That guy needs a holiday or something. That's awesome.
Like it's why you're here. If not, we'll do it ourselves.
Right. Exactly. Oh man.
All right. So my second question in there was the independent doctor thing.
Yes.
Do you think that those doctors are really independent?
Oh, that is. Right. How do I mean, I don't have any allegiance to anybody here, so I'm not going to get myself in trouble. I'm just giving you my honest opinion. Right. Meaning like I don't have any money in anything. It's disclosures, we call them in medicine. If you have to disclose who you get money from. I don't get money from people. It's just, I don't know if the Broncos or whoever the team is, if they're employing these people as independent doctors, great. Okay.
The Broncos don't employ them.
But they're right. They're an outside group of doctors.
Group of doctors that the NFL pays that money.
Right. But they're not tied to the Broncos.
But they're not tied to any individual team.
Exactly. So, I mean, in theory, you have some objectivity because they are physicians who are not, it's not like they're going golfing with the agent for a particular player, right? When John Elway was on the Broncos a million years ago, it wasn't like his agent was talking, it was a buddy of this doctor. That being said, you have all these docs who are a group of people that work with the NFL in general. And because of that, you have to always wonder then, well, who's paying them? So if the NFL is paying them, what is the NFL's, what do they want, right? They want people to pay money to watch games. They want people to go to games. They want people to be, consuming as much NFL as they possibly can. And if you have a physician then who independently is saying, hey, look, man, you're done. You're out for the season, or maybe you're out for 2 weeks or whatever it may be, that affects the money that these guys are going to make, right? Because maybe then they have to sub in the backup. maybe they have to start looking for somebody else. So I don't know how you could actually say that these doctors are completely independent. I think that if they're employed by the NFL, then are they really independent?
And look, for me, I know I convinced the doctor into doing some bullshit.
Well, right. Doctors are people too, right?
And I mean, I played on the heartstrings. Like, I was getting onto the Ultimate Fighter. I was down to the last set of tryouts, and we had to go do all this medical stuff. And the fights were taking place in Las Vegas. And I sit down to do my eye test, and the doctor goes, "Okay, take your contacts out." And I looked at him and I laughed. I was like, "Take my contacts out? I mean, all right, well, I'm not going to see anything.
Right.
Like, I won't pass any vision test." And he's like, "Well, you have to be able to pass the vision test, like no contacts in Las Vegas. That's the rules." I was like, "Yo, man, like, no, I can't do that." So he like makes me take my contacts out, and like, I am pleading with him. I'm like, "Yo, this is my life. Like, you don't get another shot at this. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. Like, I can't stress to you enough." So he goes, "Man, I don't know what to do, but let's start the test. It be like and I'm like, "Oh boy." And he's like, Peter P, and he just read me the test.
Oh my gosh, right.
And I just repeated it, and he passed me.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna? And I don't even know that guy's name, but he would have, like, who knows what would have happened to me without that guy.
Right.
So you
right.
have
Yeah. Well, no, I feel like if I was that doctor sitting in that room with you, I mean, right, this is your life, and doctors have to abide by rules. They also have to be ethical human beings. My whole deal is I'm never going to put that's different, right? I mean, you weren't like, it's not like you had some like eye disease, or, you didn't have you weren't missing an eye. I mean, it's different. I think, somebody needs help with something like contacts. I mean, I can't see past here. I'm like with my hand in front of my face. I can't see anything if I don't have my contacts.
PRK, girl, go get PRK.
Oh gosh. Yeah, exactly. I need to. But I mean, it's different, right? If I'm seeing someone who I already think probably is on the road to developing CTE, or they've had like 9 or 10 concussions, it is so my job, I feel like, to inform that person and let them know. The only people's careers who I've ended, literally, it was because I knew that if this guy got punched the wrong way or kicked in the head, he was a boxer, so if punched the wrong way, he could potentially die, right? That's totally different than that doctor sitting in that room with you and examining your eyes. I mean, totally different, right? So I just feel like for me,
100%.
Like, I'm not going to put somebody's life on the line. And I mean, you're right at that point, it's like, well, yeah, you could be in this fight, but you could also die. I mean, that's a different deal.
Did you watch the fights this weekend?
I did not this weekend. A couple weekends ago, I did see about I think he was a boxer. He might've been MMA though. I don't remember. I think I'm like flooded with too much information sometimes and I lose track, but yes, there was a fighter who, he never woke up. Did you see that one? He got hit. It was a boxer. Yeah. Oh, it was, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart.
The fourth one. Boxing has a big problem. Boxing has the biggest problem because it's all based on head contact. Right. Like, where the other sports like MMA, you can grapple, you can do this whole other thing to win fights, and you don't get concussion on top of concussion. Like, generally after I knock you down, that's most likely the end of the fight for a lot of time, right? Like, that fight ends, especially if it's bad enough, where like boxing, you get this like standing 8 count to like pretend like you're okay.
Right. Which makes a difference. I mean, there was a fight that we stopped. We called it because it was back in Boston, and the guy got knocked out, and he looked like he was kind of starting to try to get up, but it was MMA. Anyway, we called it because he just looked terrible. I mean, he looked like shit. He looked like he was concussed. But yeah, I mean, in boxing, it's right. Look at Muhammad Ali. I mean, he had dementia pugilistica. He was the very first case, probably, I think, of somebody who developed dementia. He developed like what looks like Parkinson's. It was horrible what happened to him. But, he was a one case, right? And now you don't see a lot of that with boxers. You see more, maybe CTE. You don't see that, what happened to him. So it's like there was this Muhammad Ali happen, and then everybody's like, well, but that's just Muhammad Ali. Like,
yeah, but everyone dismisses Muhammad Ali because he's a top 3 athlete icon of all time.
Right.
So like, you change the world, but you got to do that. Okay.
Right. Totally.
Okay. Like, we'll all do that. We'll all do that. Like, so I it's not the Muhammad Ali's of the world. He got to I mean, like everyone's death everyone's death sucks.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
sometimes I feel like we walk through life pretending like we're not going to die. I know I do. We all do. But Muhammad Ali's going to die too, no matter whether so he didn't have Parkinson's is what you're saying. Did I catch that?
He did. I mean, so he had something called dementia pugilistica, which essentially like Parkinson's you normally get just sporadically. We don't really know why people get Parkinson's. People like Michael J. Fox was a totally different deal too. But most people, they just kind of get it because of bad luck. And someday we'll understand better, you know, it's genetics, it's environment, it's a lot of stuff. But somebody like Muhammad Ali, that was a very singular case of somebody getting punched in the head so many times it warped his coordination centers in the brain and kind of made it look like Parkinson's, and he developed it. And under the microscope, yeah, I mean, you'd probably see Parkinson's features. So, you know, everybody's scared. I mean, they're scared of Parkinson's, they're scared of Alzheimer's. I see so many patients, so many fighters, people who say, well, am I going to get dementia? Am I going to get CTE? And it's a whole conversation, but it's just, it's growing, you know, it's growing. There are more men than women for sure. I will tell you too, one of the scariest things, there was an 18-year-old kid, a high school kid, and his parents they didn't tell us what his name was. They didn't identify him by name because they wanted to keep that information private. He was 18 years old. So he's a John Doe and he had CTE in his brain. He died. I mean, 18,
Fuck. Damn.
Right?
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful for you people wondering if you're getting any of these diseases. Don't read Dr. Seuss to your kids. Like this killed me. When I first retired and tried to read Dr. Seuss, like I like went and had a brain scan. I'm like, yo, doc, like I have a good friend who's a doctor. I was like, yo, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Do a brain scan. And I'm fine, right? Just Dr. Seuss is a little tricky.
Dr. Seuss like kind of tricks you.
Everyone. But it was right when I retired that I was having kids and reading Dr. Seuss. So it like fucked with me.
Right.
You know?
Yep. Yeah, there are a lot of people, there are parents. I have so many parents who, you know, is my kid going to, you know, and I think for parents, right, it's a totally different thing because you want, like your kid, you know, he's really motivated, he's super competitive and you love football, you know, you love athletics, it's part of who you are. So you want to drive that and, you know, make him the best athlete he can be. On the other hand, you're his dad. And so you have all these, you know, you want him to be alive and healthy and safe. And it's like, where do you find that balance of getting your kid, like, you know, fueling that competitive spirit, but also keeping him safe? And that's a hard question to answer. It's
so crazy because look, I know I'm probably going to let him play football, like tackle contact football at some point. He'll shoot me if I don't he'll fuck, you know, but I won't let him have Instagram.
Yeah.
Because I know how awful Instagram and Snapchat are for a young developing brain as well, right? And none of the creators of these apps let their kids have them. Right, not a single one, right? Yeah. Like the people, nope, you can't do that. I'm gonna sell and make millions, but not for you.
Not for you, yeah.
Right, like for their kids. Yep. So where am I worse? So I'm not gonna let them have Instagram, but I am gonna let them run this huge concussion risk.
Yeah. You know what, though? I think, again, it gets back to that being informed thing. So if you're going to go out there and be blindly ignorant, which you would never, but if there's a person like that and they just don't know any better, they don't want to know any better, and they let their kid play and they don't make sure that kid is protected to the best of their ability, that's a different deal. That's why, I mean, to me, so like my kids, you know, in Boulder Valley School District, I am talking with them about doing just a conference or a talk, if you will, on helmet safety. I mean, look at like cycling. Cycling is dangerous. You want to talk Boulder? Like talk cycling, right? The number of horrible brain injuries that I have seen, like bleeding in the brain, bruising, horrible life, like altering stuff from just not wearing a helmet is mind boggling. Helmets don't prevent concussion. They absolutely prevent devastating brain injury. And it literally takes five seconds to put a helmet on a kid.
Or yourself.
Oh yeah. How about the parents who are out there? And I don't mean to be mean, but it just breaks my heart and it makes me mad because you see a parent out there and they have the kid behind them on the bike and the kid's helmeted, but the parent's not. It's like that whole airline thing. When you're on a plane, you got to put your mask on first, right?
Talk to them all about that.
I will. You know, it matters, right?
Tell them next time you see him, be like, yo, Eliot told me something.
Well, you know what? My kid is so trained. She's 5.5. I have 2 kids, but my 5.5-year-old, she will literally, I mean, she's gone up to people and been like, where's your helmet?
It's so stupid. It's so crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's so insane to me. Like Like the motorcycle, no helmet law.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Those guys tell me, I always ask them, I'm like, well, what do you think? And they're like, no, like it's not the Harley guys. It's the crotch rocket guys. Those are the guys that are dangerous. I mean, the kind of stuff I've seen, it's just like, it's so sad. I've seen people beat to almost death who've had horrific brain injuries, and that you can't always prevent. I've seen people, so like assault, falls, motor vehicle wrecks, athletic events. It runs the gamut. I mean, it's the most like ubiquitous injury. It is everywhere, and that's why to me, we need to be training more people to know about brain injury. But I will tell you that in my experience, there are just very few people around who are interested and who want to learn about it because, hey, you can learn about Alzheimer's, you can learn about, Parkinson's, but we need people to know about concussion.
I agree. And you said you have 2 podcasts.
So I do, and they're just off the ground. My husband's a huge podcaster, and he's a physician as well. He has a media company. It helps pre-meds get into med school. I have 2 podcasts, which are now devoted to concussion, and they're just like in their very, very much infancy. But one is called Heal My Concussion. And that's aimed at helping lay people like anybody just learn about concussion. Maybe you had a brother who had a concussion, you just want to know more about it. So breaking down concussion at every level, all the symptoms, data-driven, evidence-based stuff. I always like, it's like that flat earth thing, right? To me, it's like, where's the evidence? Show me the evidence.
Go look.
I'm going to
look. Go ahead. Crazy. Just Google it.
I'm going to Google it.
They have science and everything.
It's crazy pants.
They have, yeah.
But
there's no climate change either, right? So,
right. Yeah. I mean, I respect people's beliefs about things. You want to believe what you will, but I mean, if you completely reject science, to me, that's kind of rough,
So hold on. I'll give you the argument against. Are you ready?
Okay.
So we used to be told that fats were really bad for us, and now they're telling us that they're good for us. So why should I believe science?
Oh, God. Oh, man. Yeah, but you know what, though? I mean, you could go out there and buy any book on the internet in the bookstore that tells you that you must have this diet. And if you don't have this diet, you're going to be like old and sick and messed up for life. I mean, I have Crohn's disease. My gut doesn't work normally, and that's fine. But I ask my own doctor, what should I eat? She has no idea. Nobody knows what you're supposed to eat.
I'm just telling you, the science said fats were for bad, and now they say they're good. So why should I believe them about this climate change?
It's so painful.
So that was your one, and what was your other podcast?
So Concussion Care. So the other is for people like healthcare providers, essentially. Okay. So I want people to know, if you are a patient, if you're an athlete and you want to learn about concussion, there's Heal My Concussion. Concussion Care is for like your family medicine doctor, your primary care doctor, somebody who wants to have, and the reason they're split up like that is because it's really important to me that anybody I see knows that I'm going to listen to them and meet them on their level, right? If I see like an 18-year-old MMA fighter versus I'm seeing like a 65-year-old professor, like I read people, like I talk to them at their level and I meet them where they're at. If you're going to try to be like some fancy doctor looking down on people with your nose up in the air, like you're not going to provide good care to people. You got to listen to people. You got to meet them where they're at. So if I'm going to talk a whole bunch of medical jargon to somebody, that's not helping them. So that's why to me, it's important, you have two different groups of people, if you will.
I got it. Makes sense. How long have you been doing it?
Podcasting. I mean, so I was a guest on my husband's. I've been a co-host, a guest, whatever you might call it. Probably more of a guest if you ask him, on his podcast, The Pre-Med Years, for years now. He's in his like 350th episode or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he has 8. So he's a big podcaster. And I've been a guest on his. If you listen to me,
How the fuck does he have time to have 8 podcasts? I have 2.
Well, sometime you can come over, check out our recording studio here. He is like, I mean, he's really, 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 he's into it. He's a consultant. He gives talks around the country. He's on his 4th book now, all about helping pre-meds get into med school. And then he is 8 podcasts. I don't know. He's very driven, like you, like very busy guy, very driven, not an athlete. He played baseball. He was in, actually, that movie Fever Pitch? You ever seen Fever
yeah.
Pitch? Yeah. He threw the ball that hit Drew Barrymore in the head.
No way. He gave her a concussion.
Exactly. So we got to meet all those guys like Drew Barrymore and Jimmy Fallon, and they kept saying to him, because, he's not a professional baseball player. He played in the men's league, and they invited them to be part of the movie. And so they kept saying, throw harder, throw it harder. So he's trying to like pitch the ball. So yeah, he said that was super fun. I didn't know him then yet. We met in med school. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So
has he monetized his podcasts?
So he does have some sponsorships. He's gone, back and forth about ads and sponsorship over the years. I think like right now, for example, he has a medical school and who does actually, they're a sponsor of one of his podcasts. I think he tries to be very selective about kind of what he does in that regard, because he wants to be just doing things that are both, good for the business, but also that are not just like, oh, like, let me get a whole bunch of money from silly ads. Like that's not good in his mind, if that makes sense. So
I go back and forth with it, like Joe Rogan. That motherfucker makes bank. That motherfucker makes $7 million
crazy
a year off his podcast. Right. So, I mean, so what I don't ever want with my thing that I'm doing here is I don't want you to pay me. I don't want like Allison Gray to pay me. Like, I don't like that idea. I have my businesses. I don't even think that I don't even like to say that I get paid to teach jiu-jitsu. I get paid to take you on a life-changing journey.
Yeah.
The vehicle's jiu-jitsu.
Totally.
Right? Like or Muay Thai kickboxing. Like the vehicle's martial arts. You don't pay me to teach because I don't take $1 to teach ever. I take money for other things. And that's the same thing with my podcast. I don't want my buddy's company who's like trying to get I have some ads on the beginning of my podcast and nobody pays me. They're just my buddies.
Sure. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
But the podcasting costs money.
It does. Oh my gosh. All this equipment. Like I'll look around, I turn around. I'm like, what did you buy on Amazon? He's like, it's for the business. It's for the business.
Right. Well, my wife is like, hey, so does anything ever come back for the business?
Well, that was my biggest question to him when he started this so many years ago. He started because all these airmen, he was in the Air Force, he was a flight surgeon, and all these airmen kept coming up to him and being like, hey, how do you get to med school? How do you do that? And he just started providing advice. And then it kind of organically developed into this business that he created. And he left the Air Force after 5 years and wanted to become an entrepreneur. And that's what he does now. And he doesn't practice anymore. I do. I practice medicine every day, but he's an entrepreneur and he provides value in other ways. But it's very interesting. His idol, actually, he listens to Joe Rogan, but he loves Gary Vaynerchuk. You know Gary V?
Fuck yeah, I love Gary V. Hell yeah. I love Gary V.
He'll be like, hey, listen to Gary V. You got to listen to this episode on the way to work. Okay. Just listen to this. I'm like, all right. I love Gary V too. I mean, he's an inspirational guy.
I just love his do what you want.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. Like do what you want. But like, I think people fuck this up all the time because, I just did what I wanted my whole life. I've never done what I didn't want.
Yep.
But when it comes down to doing that, if that's what you want to do, you got to work.
You do. I mean, it's
really
like
work.
A brick at a time, a day at a time, $1 at a time. Like I've seen my husband do this just as his wife. And it's, I have so much respect for that, just that entrepreneur, that driven, disciplined, motivated. Cause I always said, like, I'm a doctor, like give me a set of instructions to follow. I will follow it. Like I was always like a rule follower. And like, you tell me to, do round kicks, like I will do them. You tell me what to do, I'll do it. But my husband, like, it's like you're very self-motivated. You're creative. That's the other thing about an entrepreneur that I think is so interesting. It's like, there's that creativity. And for me, I'm starting now with this podcast. I want to provide value, but the creative piece of it, I think is not everybody has that.
You just have to, for me, I just have to go, like some people like scroll Instagram, and I definitely scroll Instagram, but I scroll Instagram for ideas. Mm-hmm. Like I don't scroll Instagram for chicks with big butts.
Right. Or likes. Like, you know how Instagram I heard is going to get rid of likes because people just sit around.
About it.
Yeah. I mean, like that's pretty wild. They're
thinking about it.
Because people, I guess, put out content and then if they don't get 50 likes right away, they take it down, which is just like, you got to be confident. You got to put something out there, be confident in what you said.
People fuck this up. It's not that like everybody wants to go viral. Just like I want to train a world champion. The best way to train a world champion is to make your door accessible to as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. If only 50 people walk in the door, your odds, just like the random odds of getting a world champion, are so small. If 1 million people walk in the door, now you've increased your odds. It's the same thing with content on social media, right? Like they're like, oh, it didn't get, no, man, you got to throw shit at the wall. It's got to be out there.
I love that.
You know, if it sucks, it sucks. You just have to get good at fucking up.
Oh yeah. And my husband always talks about that. He's like, build content. Like when I was asking him about for our business, like how do we get our message out there to athletes, to people, like, look, you need concussion care. Let us give you comprehensive, good care that we really, really care about each individual. And I was like, how do we do this?
What's in your hand, by the way? I've been meaning to ask you, and it keeps going. Okay. It goes from one hand to the other hand. And then like, you're not helping me, not thinking that I don't have CTE here, because like, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It was in my hand. Oh, wait a minute. Now it's not. Like what the hell?
No, that's what you're seeing is my little, so I have, we all have anxieties and different things. Yeah. And so I've had anxiety before. And so I fidget. Like when I was like 6 years old, my parents gave me that little twiddle thumb thing. So I could just sit there because I was very focused, but I just needed to be doing something. But my husband's always like, you got to build content. Like that's how you talk to people. That's how you provide value, is you provide content. And then from there, your social media presence will grow. But if you're just sitting around, you're not providing value. It's like what Gary Vee says, like you got to provide value. If you're not, you're irrelevant. I mean, Gary Vee is like really harsh about it.
That's what I like about him. Cause I don't like it soft.
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably you're a UFC champion, like, right? I mean, you're not a
champion. No. Please, no champion. I wish. No
champion, no. Well, hey, you're very accomplished, which is pretty awesome.
I've done a little bit, but I've been super lucky, Yeah. And that's what this podcast is about. It's just like giving information to people about, like, one, for me, the topic was very interesting, concussions, because I have so many jiu-jitsu people and MMA fighters that listen, that I was like, okay, let's get this out there. And then two, I just like talking to people. Like that's my favorite thing to do other than martial arts. It's my favorite thing to do in the whole world is talk. And we've never really talked before. Like, hello. And I think to solve most of our biggest problems in the world, like we need to talk. Like the podcast, I did a podcast with this guy down in Alabama. Last week. His is next, and then yours will be after that when it comes out. Man, he's this like southern redneck from Alabama, but like I saw his Instagram and I was like, he commented on something on mine, and then I looked at his. I always look at people, and I was like, damn, he has 80,000 followers.
Wow. Never
won anything. Nobody knows who the fuck he is as far as like competitor wise, but he's been able to do this. I'm like, man, I'm going to talk to this guy and like forget that most likely he's probably some piece of shit redneck, but he wasn't.
That's
right. Like when we sat down and talked, not even close. Right. And this was all my bullshit that look, we all do in our head. So the way I get by it is to actually be like, no, I'm going to put that preconceived notion over here, and I'm going to try to talk to somebody.
I think that's great. Yeah, I think to be able to sit down, and I like to say, could I sit down and talk at a table with any person? And yeah, like you said about, the redneck, like to me, it's like a white supremacist. Like, I don't know that I could do that because I just, I don't know. I'm a Jewish woman, and
you're the tribe, huh?
Yeah. My great grandfather's siblings were all murdered in the Holocaust. I mean, so white supremacy to me, like this whole thing is scary as you know what, it's scary as fuck.
I grew up with it. My grandparents were survivors.
Were they really?
Yeah. My grandparents were survivors. My grandfather, he was the only one out of 19 of his family.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I grew up, and we were super close because you're in a Holocaust surviving family, right? Like it's tight. It's fucking tight.
It is.
That's all they had. They will kick everyone to the fucking curb in a hot minute.
Absolutely. My grandfather, my dad's father on the other side, I mean, he fought his way to school every single day, like in Roxbury, Boston. Like it was a Jewish neighborhood. It used to be a long, long time ago. And he would fight his way to school every day because he was hunted for being Jewish. I mean, that kind of stuff, like, right. It just affects you. So
I don't know. I don't know if I can do the white supremacist either is what I'm saying.
Right. So exactly. But I think like you said, I mean, I get energized by talking to people too. It's the same thing. And yeah, I mean, I love it. You talk to people, you learn about them. It's a good day.
It's a good day. Let's end right there. It's a good day. I like it. Allison, tell everyone where they can find you and find your podcast and stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me today. It's been such a pleasure. You can find me online. So I actually have a Twitter handle that I have to be better at using. It's My Concussion Doc, DOC.
Fuck Twitter.
I don't know how to tweet. What is this tweeting thing? But I am on, I'm on social media. You can find me if you just go to healmyconcussion.com. That's actually where I practice. That's Colorado Concussion Clinic. And we have offices in Boulder and Denver. We have satellite offices in Fort Collins and Greenwood Village, actually, and we are expanding. We are Yes, we're a multidisciplinary clinic of people, including myself as a neurologist and brain injury specialist. But we have vestibular physical therapists who provide concussion physical therapy. We have speech language pathologists who provide cognitive rehab. We have a neuro-optometrist who provides visual evaluation and therapy. And we have just a wonderful group of people an athletic trainer who's just amazing. So a really, really good group of people, I think. And I feel very privileged every day to work with them. So healmyconcussion.com is our website. And if you want to find me on social media, well, it's funny. I'm such a bozo about social media. Like I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. I didn't even know that it was called like Insta or Gram. Like people like shorten it. I'm like so not cool enough to know that kind of thing. But yeah, you can find me. I'm as Allison Gray, and God, I don't even like know I have 2 different handles, and I don't even like.
I got you, girl. Hold on, I got you. Let me find you.
Tell me what I am.
Earlier. Hold on, let's find you.
Bad. I got to get better at this.
You're bad at this. Yes.
I'm really bad.
If you don't know your Gram handle,
I don't even know that it's called Gram. Like
it's called the Gram.
The Gram. Yeah.
Where I fuck up, I think it's called slip into your DMs, because like this is how people pick each other up these days in this day and age. Who are you? Let's see. Come on. Where are you?
Well, and I can tell you the clinic. So the clinic's easy. It's Concussion Clinic. So when we post, like they're very good about posting stuff on Instagram because it's not me doing it. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm AR Gray MD. I'm pretty sure that's me, but I'm not even sure. Like, oh my God, how terrible is this? All my personal stuff's on there as AR MD. So
I don't know.
Find me there. Find me there.
Find her on the Gram. Hit her up.
Find me on the Gram. AR Gray MD, as in MD, medical doctor. Yeah. Find me there. You can hit up my personal one. I don't care.
Allison, thank you very much. I will see you in the school.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for just the awesome place that Easton is. I feel so privileged to get to be a student there, and just the coaches, everybody's so amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, we're the lucky ones there as far as the student, the student owner relationship. It's me that's lucky. You just don't realize it yet. I would love to talk to your husband too about podcasting.
Oh, anytime.
You can give him my number, because you have my number. So give him my number so he can give me a text whenever. I'd love to talk to him.
Will do. You got it.
All right, guys, go out there, find your power.